What's up, sisterhood? I'm actually coming to you with a little bonus video today. And it's, I think, mostly exclusively for YouTube. So great for you. I just had this idea that I wanted to, not this idea, but this story that I wanted to share with you. And after having spent a weekend with some amazing people at a retreat, and getting to hear so many different stories and, a bug on my head, a fly while I'm trying to film a video. And just realizing like, wow, you know, just because I have moved into a different season of life doesn't mean that I can't still offer those of you who are single, because I'm married now, some encouragement through my own story. And this is actually one I don't think I've ever shared like publicly before. I share it in my new book, Not Part of the Plan, Trusting God with the Twists and Turns of Your Story, which you can actually pre-order right now. So the entire book actually kicks off with this story. But I think outside of that, I've shared it at like a conference once. I don't know if I've ever shared it anywhere else. Okay, so get this. Over 10 years ago, like 11 years ago, Kristen got engaged to Zach Clark, her husband, who she has been married to for 10 years. And I was completely single at this point. And while she was shopping for a wedding dress, we walked into this wedding dress store. I was with her, and my eyes landed on what I thought was the most beautiful dress that had ever been created. It was like the Cinderella, like dream dress that the fairy godmother had like whipped up. And I was just like, Kristen, that is the dress. It's amazing. You have to get it. And she was like, it's really pretty, but it just wasn't like her. It wasn't calling out to her like it was to me. And so out of nowhere, I don't even know why, she was like, you should try it on. And now get this, we're shopping at a wedding dress shop. I'm totally single. She's there shopping for her wedding, trying to find a wedding dress on. And she suggests I try this wedding dress on that I think is so beautiful. I don't know what got into me, but I agreed. And I went to the dressing room and tried the dress on. And I remember the lady helping me like, so when are you getting married? And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure yet, like sweating. And I remember I put this dress on and I came out and I just felt like I was a princess. And I was like, oh, and you know, my family, my sisters, they were like, it's amazing. And so I don't know what took over my brain, but I decided that I did not want to accidentally miss out on the dress of my dreams. And in my mind, I assumed that even though I wasn't in a relationship at that point, I'm like, super early 20s, like 21 or whatever. And I'm like, for sure I'll get married in the next year or two, even though I'm not in a relationship right now. Like there's gotta be someone out there and it'll happen because this is what I want for my life and this is my plan. And of course, God wants to give me this good gift, so it'll happen. So I made the choice to spend a ton of money on a dress that I had no idea when I would ever wear, having this faith that I would get married soon because that's what I wanted in that moment. And I just thought that that's what would happen. And that was my plan. And that was going to be my story for my life. And it would be such a fun story because I would have been that girl who bought her wedding dress before she even knew her man. And then she met him. And then, I would just have this whole story. So I bought the dress and put it in the back of my closet. And it sat there and sat there and sat there for year after year after year. And I would get into a relationship, hoping it would work out, hoping that I would get to walk down the aisle in that dress. Then it would end and the dress would still be sitting there. And I know a lot of you are thinking like, I am a total psycho for doing that. And you would never do that. And looking back, I'm like, that was really random, but it's where I was in the moment. And I had such a strong desire to get married and to move into that season that, I was putting my faith in that dream and, just hoping it would become a reality. And I can tell you though, for sure in that season, I didn't have an open hand of saying, God, what do you want for my life? What do you have for me? How can I serve you? How can I thrive and live for you? Like I was holding on to my plan for my life with like a clenched fist. And I wanted God to make all of my dreams come true in the way that I thought my life should work out, not in the way that God wanted to write my story and God wanted to, have me live for him and thrive for him. I wanted him to, basically like follow my every wish for my life. And so, like I said, I share all about this in much greater detail with so much hope for you, no matter if you're single or just in a season where you're like, this is not what I planned for my life. This is not part of the plan. This is not what I wanted. And maybe it's not a wedding dress. Maybe you have something else that is just like haunting you. Like it's just a reminder of how life is not going the way you wanted. If you want encouragement and hope and freedom, that's not part of the plan. Trusting God with the twists and turns of your story. I'll link it below. You can get it, pre-order it right now, wherever books are sold. But that and this story about the wedding dress is what kicks off this book and takes you on my life journey and Kristen's life journey of realizing life rarely, if ever, goes the way that we planned. And there are twists and turns that we never expected. And if we don't learn how to trust God and understand his character and see him for who he truly is, we won't thrive. We'll live in a state of disappointment and worry and just overcome with just this grief of like, this isn't what I wanted for my life. But there's an alternative route. And I will say that it took me a long time to learn. And that wedding dress was that thing that haunted me. And it was just this reminder, like, your dreams aren't coming true. Your life is not turning out the way that you wanted. And I remember just keeping it in the back of my closet. And it was like this deep, dark secret I didn't tell any of my friends. All of my sisters didn't even know. I think Kristen knew and Alyssa knew and my parents knew, but my younger sisters and brothers, they didn't even know that I had this in the back of my closet. And it took me years to come to this point. And it really was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. And so it was this acknowledging, God, I have this desire. I want marriage so bad. I have my dress ready. Like, I am a bride in waiting, ready to go. And if you're single, I know you know how that can feel. And it's so hard to open up your hands and say, God, I know that you want what's better for me than I even want for myself. And you have a better plan and a better path and a better story for me than I could ever even imagine. And it may not look like what I had imagined, but if I trust you and follow you and live for you, I'm going to thrive and I'm going to be satisfied, even if my circumstances look completely different than what I ever hoped for. And that dress sat in my closet for about a decade. And it sat there so long that, after many, many years of it sitting there, it really, instead of turning into something that haunted me, it kind of reminded me of where I was as a 21-year-old and where I had come in my trust with God and my surrender of, instead of saying, I'm buying this wedding dress and this is my story for my life, as I started to approach closer to 30, I had started to live a much more surrendered life. And I can tell you the joy and satisfaction and just the life that I had in my later 20s compared to my early 20s is night and day, because I slowly started to open my hands and say, God, I want to follow you. I want to live for you. I want to trust you and I want you to direct my paths. And I'm going to live in that way. And I cannot tell you how much I thrived. Even though I didn't get married at that point, I thrived because I understood my purpose. I understood what I was created for. And I realized that I can live for the glory of God in whatever circumstances I'm in right now, because it's not about getting a guy or getting that next thing. It's about living and serving and thriving right where God has me. So a lot of you know the end of the story, that I did end up getting married at 30. And the crazy part is that I did not wear the dress I bought when I was like 20, 21. I ended up wearing a completely different dress. And that's because when I actually got married, I couldn't imagine walking down the aisle to Dave in that dress, because I was like, this doesn't fit our relationship. This doesn't fit like the bride that I imagine being married to Dave, like the man that I'm actually marrying. And so I got a completely different dress. And confession, I now own 2 wedding dresses. I own a dress that is still collecting mothballs and has never been worn, besides my sisters playing dress up because they know about it now. And I wore the dress that I wore on my wedding day, which is everything and more that I could have ever hoped for. So I just want to encourage you. Are you holding on to your plans and your dreams and your life with a death grip, not surrendering? Or are you opening up your hands and saying, God, I surrender to you. I trust you. Help me to follow you. Help me to make Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 the cry and prayer of my heart. Help me not to, plan my life so much that I'm not willing to follow you. I'm only willing to follow myself. And if you want greater encouragement, whether that's with singleness, infertility, relationships around you that are just not what you hoped that they would be, work stuff, school stuff, whatever it is, whether it's something that you chose or somebody else chose that's impacting you and you want to know how to work through that, I strongly encourage you to grab a copy of Not Part of the Plan, Trusting God with the Twists and Turns of Your Story. I think it's backwards on there, but that's okay. You can pre-order it on Amazon or wherever books are sold, and I think it will be a great encouragement to you. I hope this story was encouraging to you for where you are in life, and I just want to encourage you to trust in the Lord with all your heart, because that's where true life is really found.